good.
Yeah.
I still got to set the handle. I got to get wires. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if this is any good. It's windy. Got too much.
The man and his machine.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Old Stuka stunt here. Z77. Ah, I hear you.
Now we're going to be doing a little test for Rich. Rich is telling me that in the middle of this flight, around the square 8, the motor goes rich. Well, I haven't really paid attention to it, but we're going to find out here. Now that looks about right. I would say you're right on the motor. Now, a way you can test, you can turn your tank into a no uniflow tank. You can cap off the uniflow vent, leave the overflow open and make a little elbow so it points into the airstream, and that makes it a no uniflow tank. And then you can determine, hopefully, if the uniflow is part of the problem. Now, a lot of times where you locate the uniflow vent, if it's on the top, the side, lower than the mounts, higher than the mounts, you can get various negative scenarios. Well, we're going to find out here. We're trying to do some work on, since pretty much everybody here is using the same carbon fiber tank, not a whole lot different, except of course for Rich's, which are plumbed to go the other way. They're all carbon fiber tanks. They all are 6.2 long and 7 ounces. Even a Testarossa. And Ken Tyser, when he was here on his visit, I made him 2. I made one for Midgley. Midgley's going to have one in his new plane soon. Now you want to determine whether it's sagging from being over lean. I want to see this. I got to record this because then I can go back and play the tape at the house. And we've had a couple of nice days here. We had this big giant week or 10 days of nothing but rain, and now it's really gotten nice. Should be able to get some decent testing, flying. This is a prop that I had tuned for Rich. One of Doran Morisano's props. Now this is where he says it goes rich. To be honest, I don't see it going rich. Now because we're recording the flight, I'll be able to go home and play and see if we're dropping in lap times or if they're staying the same. Isn't it amazing? When I'm here, nothing bad ever happens. Well, you guys ought to just stuff me and keep me at the field. Could have been a plug.
Yeah, he changed the plug.
It sounds good now. What did he do? Put a new plug in? Well, he was prone to having lean runs down at Rich Oliver's. A lot of times, that'll eat the plug. The plug will be, this looks like maybe it isn't the tank at all, it's the plug. He put a new plug in, it looks like the problem solved, but anytime you're suspecting funny motor runs, it's a lot more likely it's the plug than the fuel tank, especially if it's been running fine for 2 years or 3 years. But anyway, maybe that's a lesson you can put to your own good use. I don't know, the motor sounds pretty good to me. Everybody here is loving their 77s and their pantyhose options and all the other stuff. Well, I don't know what he wants to change. We'll see when he comes down. Here on the carrier deck, let's see how Carrier Rich. Look at, he greases one in. Whoa! Carrier boy.
Grease job. Yeah, Buddy probably said, what the hell is he talking about?
So Rich, we need to know, you're going to buy us all a glow plug at the end of the day? You better buy a dozen out at brodaks. Send them to us.
You know who gave me this plug? Ryan.
Right?
It's a Thunderbolt 4-stroke.
Yeah, they make 4-stroke plugs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're no different. They just
there's no bar, right?
Yeah.
I traded him. I gave him a regular one, a Thunderbolt with the bar, and he gave me this.
Now you can trade him for that plug that doesn't work for one that does work. All right, what a salami. Unbelievable.
No, we should tell John that, make USA championships.
All right, Buddy Weeder's here with his new plane. He is really happy with the way everything's worked out on this so far. This was one of the planes, I think on a previous tape, we had gone into that week that we had where it rained all week. We had some pretty disappointing trips to the field, but anyway, he's flying now.
What's that?
What's happening, Rich?
I clocked him, but I can't because he doesn't.
He's going the right speed. You don't have to clock him. There's nothing wrong with this. Don't be a baby. Just fly the plane. You don't think John Glenn said, oh, I think we're going too fast with the space shuttle. Just fly it.
Can you imagine them people coming in when that space shuttle blew up?
Oh,
18,000
don't even
miles an
talk
hour?
about that. Oh my
I
God.
never knew what hit him.
Nah.
Never knew. That's great. Never knew what hit him. Hey, did you see that? The show, at 18,000 miles an hour, coming through, with that blue,
And I would say this was just about as sweet as it can be for a new plane. Hard to imagine having it much easier than this. And for all the people that might have missed the tape before this, where Buddy Weeder graciously got on a knee and apologized to Rich Oliver for being an unhappy person. Oh man, we gave him the Tom Niebuhr Award. Anyway, this is about as easy as it gets when you have a new plane. We've had a lot of this on a subscriber tape. We've made several, including the control changes that Buddy's taken advantage of while the plane was apart. And the only thing he kind of skipped up on is when he put the push rod in for the final time, the controls aren't both in neutral. And we're going to take care of that somewhere in the near future. But in the meantime, what's most important of all, we're getting flights. Day after day, just grinding in, flying. Taking advantage of some nice air here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if I can start that there. without the mic.
I'll be impressed. I'll be impressed. I'll be impressed. John, I'm going to buy you an electric starter for Christmas.
No.
Rest the old bones.
No, I don't want an electric starter. Boy, somebody did it in the lawn there, didn't they?
Yeah, some kid probably did that.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, spin this wheel.
You know what I didn't see this year, Rich? None of the geese have young.
Well, they've been upset because the park is being redone.
Oh, really? Yeah.
You should see what they did there. They raised the grade about 10, 20 feet.
I got to go look at it.
Oh,
you won't believe what they've done.
You can't believe it.
They cut all the trees. All the trees are gone.
There's not one tree remaining.
Wow. And you tell the guy we don't want any trees by our flying field. We're tough guys. We sit out in the sun.
When we get to that point, I'm going to tell them, don't bother planting any trees around our field.
Well, if he does, we'll uproot him and throw him in a river when he's not looking.
Want him.
No trees. We want open air. Carry a deck weeder. Now if he can bring it down without putting it into the fence. Better back up, That's going a little fast. Oh. Here on the carrier deck, we gotta babysit these guys. Now, this is the latest thing that I've seen at this park. I'm assuming there's babies in these things, or else they just load them up with cinder blocks and walk around. But an awful lot of people have, they're pushing something. It actually was one woman pushing she was on rollerblades and pushing a baby. I'm not sure what that was all about. Or pushing a baby gorilla or something, I don't know what. Never a shortage of action. Now check this out. She's walking and he's jogging, and the baby's getting fatter by the minute. She's probably saying, "Come on, honey, jog. You're too fat. You got high cholesterol. You're getting fatter by the minute, husband." Well, you fed him, lady. You're the one that plumped him up that he's got to run around pushing a baby carriage. Oh, I'm so tired of jogging. I wish I could build control line stunt planes. We're getting a lingerie show here as the hotties go by. I feel like we're in California or something. Look at this. From baby carriages to rollerblades. Rich isn't able to fly when the hotties are going by. Honey, I think we should just take 10 more laps. We're losing so much weight pushing these babies around. I don't know, I guess I'm just not a modern parent, getting ready to have grandchildren. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this or not. Anyway, Buddy's got his trim tab. He had a little bit of a trim tab. He took some tip weight out. So I would count that today was pretty successful in every way. And he's got enough flights on it now that it's becoming his buddy. Buddy, it's becoming his buddy. It's baby carriages or Buddy, take your pick. No, I can hear the fish saying, "Yeah, so you got these props working and you got Buddy's plane trimmed out. Who cares? Feed me." This is what they do best, eat. Let me tell you what the other thing they do well is, and I got to clean the fish filters today. Eat. They're just not impressed. I try to convince them that it's difficult to trim stunt ships. Do they care? Do they care? Do they care at all? Not a bit. You go flying, I'm going swimming. Now at the end of the the previous couple days. We finished up all the hollowing operations here. Now the critical thing that we have to do, and it's really something you can't underestimate how important it is to get these wheel pants in alignment. Now there's 3 alignments. The alignment that they have to be straight and tracked. We can't have one off, pigeon-toed, because what would happen then is they'll become trim tabs. They also are going to change the vertical CG some because they're not going to be as light as these. So obviously one of the things we need to do is we're going to have to figure out, I made a little adjustable trim tab to put on a tip weight box so that I can kind of figure out exactly what the difference is between the wheels and the wheel pants when it comes time to do that. We also did this little test that worked out pretty nice. Is when I filled the tank, of course it's upside down, I capped off the top vent, which is the Uniflow, turned the tank into a no Uniflow tank. Of course I took this off and I have this little fitting that faces this into the airstream. Now what it did for me is it made from the hourglass on, it made it that it had a little more power. It got a little faster toward the end of the flight, something that I really liked. But again, I want to have the option and I can change it between flights. Didn't change the needle valve setting or the RPM at all, so that was very convenient that I have no changes in the database. But the first thing is to get one wheel off and then start lining up the wire. I got to make sure the first wire is lined up with this wheel because we know that's the takeoff position we want. Then try to get all these alignments in and get it tacked in. And that's going to be pretty time consuming. I don't expect that to take 10 minutes. I have the wire in place now. I also checked before we went to put the original gear back in that we had a good track and that they're both in alignment. So but the next thing is to get from the side view of the plane, and you can imagine how crazy it's going to look if they're tilted up or tilted down. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time getting a notch carved in there that we need. Now of course the primary thing here is to get this, it's this notch here that's critical because this is going to determine which way this sits. So I think, well, one of the things I think I ought to do, take the dummy wheel, find out how far down that's going to wind up going. It's going to actually just be right on the notch. Okay. Now I need to get the angle. Okay, so that roughly gives me the angle. Now I need to cut a notch, just enough of a notch that I can get this tack glued in place on the wire without having the wire come through. And remember, these are very thin. I don't want the wire popping through the other side if I can help it. Now what I did, I moved this a couple of times to get exactly the angle I wanted to. Tried to mark the axle center. We're obviously going to have to put a little block in here to take the reverse curve. But it's right here that I got to start now. Take the Dremel tool and very gently grind a little notch in here because I don't want to grind out any more material than I need. And I want to get that hopefully the wheel is going to be right in the middle. Now, we got this piece set right about in position, very, very close. Once I finalize that position, and remember it has to be even, I need to measure to the center line of the fuse on both sides. I don't want this off one way or the other. I want it perfectly straight. I also want that it's level this way. And once I get that, I'm going to tack this. Just going to be a temporary tack joint. Now the whole trick here is just to get a tack, so we can still break it loose if we have to. But at the same time, I know the axles are 90 degrees, so I can check that my center line is 90 degrees. I can also check, and that's real close to being right on the money. But if it isn't, right now is the time to make the correction. Check both sides since we're working off a center line here. Now, it also could be that these go in crooked this way or this way, so the next thing is to check that they're 90 degrees to the wing. And once I'm happy, then I can run a regular glue bead there. But do all of the little twisting and changing while it's just got a tack of glue, 1 drop of thin CA. Okay, and of course you can look straight from the front. The easiest way is actually when we get the 2 of them on here, you would think you could just go tip to tip, tip to tip, but I'd rather go to a center line on the fuselage. I'd rather not, because if they're off, if one is off, all I'll do is make the other one off. So I want to work off a center line right down the middle. That looks pretty good in that dimension. It looks straight in this dimension. And I got to look for how this is going to look once this is it going to look up or down? That looks pretty good in that dimension. And we know the wheel position is very close to where we ultimately want it. So now what I can do here is, and this will not be a totally permanent joint, but just run a couple more beads of thin CA in here just to lock this in place. I can build a little glue fillet up here if I want. Plus the thin CA will harden up the wood. Now this is now the critical part. Once we're done and these are all lined up, the rest of it is making the little doors and legs and things relatively easy. But getting this lined up, this is like putting a wing in a body. This is a kind of a time-consuming thing when it comes to making a nice set of wheel pants, whether you have the wheel exposed or not. Now, of course, we need to get a wheel. We're going to have to do somewhere down the road. We wanted, or Les wanted, to have the wheel come out right exactly in the middle. Well, it's close but no cigar. That's the problem. We're not exactly where we want it to be. But we're limited because this is very thin. We can't really move it that much. So now the next thing, of course, is to line up the second one with the first one. And again, look at it from every possible way. It's straight this way, and that we're not building a toe in or a toe out. And if we are, we got to move it. And repeating the same thing on this side, exactly the same as that. I want the 2 shells in place before I go to the next step. Now once I got them lined up, I tack glued on the other side. I need to finalize the wheel fit, of course. That may be incrementally off, I don't know, but because we can get that on and off, it's not a problem. I need to get the other one on and then double check that from every angle you can measure it, that we're in the right angles, nothing's tilting up, nothing's tilting down, sideways. And then the next thing, and we may even get to do this today, next thing is to start figuring out, we need to get the wire cover, a little bit of a like a gear door leg there. Now once we got, and these are nice and solid now and they're lined up pretty well, I have that old jar with the sticky back paper, and what I'm trying to do, I took the next size bigger wheel to see where it rubs. This will give me exactly the right amount of clearance, because we want to keep a tight fit there, but I don't want to have it sloppy. I don't want to have it asymmetrical where it's not equal all around. And this is the wheel we really are going to use. And so that gives you, once you can get it, it gives you a nice even clearance around the whole part. Now there's a lot of little details on this that we're going to have to detail around the bottom with somehow. I don't know how yet. Oh yeah, that looks nice now. Yeah, once we have our little Testarossa hubcap on there. This is kind of nice and smooth, what we were hoping it would be. And what I can do if I really want to just to check for any high spots. This will just help me find that. In fact, I can use the wheel as a jig here. Just use one size bigger wheel, and we may want to line that with plywood or fiberglass or something when we're done. Now, the other thing is you don't want to have this so close, because what happens, and you can remember on a motorcycle, if you put the fender too close to the tire, the tire grows as you're taking off and landing. So you don't want to have it that it binds up at some RPM or whatever. So that pretty much is how we're going to set the wheels in. Now the next thing is, I don't know if we're going to have time to do this today, is to figure out the shape and cut out the gear legs. Because my goal today was to get these roughed out and put the gear back on a plane so I can fly tomorrow. And then once I have these in my hand, I never have to put them back on a plane. I need to get this angle up by the wing and what shape I want this to be, and I'll just eyeball that in, of course. And then do the final carving and sanding. I got to detail out. There's a week left of work on this. These are not, you know, set them and forget them. Now when you don't have the wheel exposed, it's a lot less work. You just cut the one hole and you're done. Now in making up these legs, here's one of the things that'll make it a little bit easier. Make them totally oversized, because here's what you have to do. You see how that angle, as you drop it down, it has to be oversized in a lot of dimensions. In fact, I got to get the curve in there so we get a nice tight fit, because this is going to help keep the wheel pant in shape. Now I made it way oversized, and I'll carve and sand it. The two pieces a 1/4 inch. I'll eventually have this curved. Every dimension will be a curve. There'll be no straight lines on this. But just make it oversized, is the easiest way I know, and get plenty of clearance between the wing. Nothing's worse if you try to get too close up here. What really happens is, as soon as you get a little spring action, it puts a little notch in the wing. Now I got half of this on. I just need to put the cap on the other side. And since the wire is not exactly in the middle, because of the offset, I'm making these bigger than they have to be, and then I'll carve and sand them in. Now I want to keep this clearance here, so I'm going to draw a line right on there. I want to keep at least a 1/4 inch of clearance, so any movement that happens there. And then the last thing will be, well, I got to do the other one, is to get all the contours and curves in here as he trips over the ruler. Yeah, that's going to look nice. When that's all carved in, boy, that's really going to look nice. And keeping that clearance by the wing, very important. I don't think you can ever underestimate that. You get that wrong, and the first time you have a hard landing, and a major problem. Now this little thing broke already. We're going to reinforce that, of course. I think we got the look Les was looking for. Now the hardest part is going to be getting these blends, where this blends into here, and we'll probably put a little aeropoxy light fillet there in the end. But the first thing is to get the profile shape that I want. And that's what's handy about having any number of little tools with sandpaper, but this'll get a little bit of a blend. And all these curves are going to matter in a final product. It's not like making fuse mounted gear where you just put 2 wood screws and they're done. It's a little more complex than that. What I try to do is keep them symmetrical, just hold them side by side every step of the way. I don't want one to be bigger or wider or fatter or whatever. Okay, now I got to get the back. Again, nice little half dowel. And once we get the profile, the side shape, then I'll start the carving. let's see, this one is bigger than this one. Okay, now I got this edge where it's going to be, we got at least 3/8 of an inch of clearance between it and the wing, just for safety, because you can see where we're flying every once in a while on the carrier deck there. It gets a little difficult. Or you pick up a stone or something. Now to rough these in, I want to radius all these shapes off as the next step. Just a rough radius, and then try to do a lot of it with the sanding tools. Maybe it's time for a new blade here. Yep, let me get a new blade. This is already dull. Because we're cutting right into the end grain. Oh, phone's ringing anyway. Now with a new blade, of course I want to get this radius right in here, if I can. And I'll do the last little bit. Work up to the center line here if I can. Oh, I love new blades. Now you know down here where the blend is, this is going to be not exactly how I want it. And I can use a big block like this to do a lot of it. In fact, what I can do to get down in there, I had this jar. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Just keep moving the angle in the direction. Now as this blends in here, this is where it's going to get to be difficult. Then I'm going to have to get this little tool. Even at the point of making this a little bit of a valley that I could fill in with air epoxy in the end. But having these sanding tools, this is the whole thing to making it happen. And once I get, now of course I got to get all 4 on each side, so there's 8 all together, and then I got to work this area here with the big sanding block. Now the good news is I'm totally done with the plane and the wheels. I can put this away for now, and now, assuming we get some weather, next time we get a decent day, obviously we can go flying. But I don't need to do the wheel pants. The next time I put the wheel pants on here, this will be totally buffed out. Now the last thing I did was, last night before I retired, put on some air epoxy light. This is probably ready to sand. And that's the next step. As soon as I get some time, right now we have other projects to work on, but the point is, the longer you let it dry, the easier it's going to be to sand. So because we have other things to work on, we'll just let that dry. Come back to this later and it'll probably sand. That way you know if it's going to be the way it should be, is you do a little test, and if it sands out like powder, it's dry and ready to go. Usually that's 24 hours, 48 hours is the better. And the warmer you can make it. If you got a car parked in the sun, put it in the car. If you get the higher the temperature, the quicker the air epoxy light will cure, and the quicker it'll sand out. Now I found a couple little things that were real handy in sanding out the air epoxy light. First off, what's very difficult to do on a wheel pant like this is to get this blend. So there's no defined area where the leg ends and the wheel pant begins. It's like it's made in one piece. And to do that, this has been real handy. And I've worked that area. And of course you can see, as soon as air epoxy light turns to powder, you're home free all. And I've always liked the look that the leg and the pant were almost cut out of one piece of wood. But if you try to make it out of one piece of wood, you get the grain going in the wrong direction up here, or you almost have to do it in a way similar to this. Now also, I made varying diameters. This is the next smaller diameter. Let me get the phone. Different diameters to work on this. Now again, what I have are jars with the sticky back paper, and the critical part of this is getting this curve where it transitions. This is where, just using a radius motion, get this transition. Again, to have a proper, I think proper anyway, this not only has to taper in the front dimension, it gets thicker like a Coke bottle, and of course that's very much in keeping with the Testarossa, but also the transition from the pant to the leg, nice and smooth. Another thing that's helped, and I have all these little tools out here, I wanted to show them. This little sanding guy for getting in the back radius, and then dressing off that complete back radius. Now what I do is I try to sand it, get somewhere close to the shape that I want, then put some thick CA and just wipe it on with a paper towel, because then it hardens up the wood where the air epoxy ends and the CA begins. Now, another flat block for getting a transition from air epoxy to balsa wood. Air epoxy is just slightly harder than balsa, so it makes it nice if you can get the thick CA on the balsa. You just get a nicer transition. This little tool was a big help. It's a little half moon. I think Les split this dowel in half. But the big one that's really been and this was an old wood prop. It's a 13/8 wood prop, an old BY&O prop. Of course, it's good for making a radius when you do the air epoxy. But here's the other thing it's good for right now. That radius is just about nice for the transition, where I'm transitioning from one shape into another. And it's where if that transition in the final part becomes seamless, then you know you've really got a piece of artwork. Now the other issue here is where the wing ends, I want it to have plenty of clearance, because as this moves, I don't want the front or the back putting a hole in the wing. So what happens, because I have clearance, I'm going to see the top of this, and I want to make sure that I have a nice finish on it. It just doesn't look ratty. So I've sealed it with thin and thick CA, and I'm going to try to put a nice flat edge and a nice radius in it. Again, all these little sanding tools, they all add up to having, just make a job like sanding these out as reasonable as possible. Most people that have never made a set of wheel pants don't realize it's labor intensive, but it's a relaxing, enjoyable part. And the nice thing is, in this case, you can build them off of the plane. If you don't like them, you just can make another set and sell this set to Midgley or something. Dave is going to be making up wheel pants for his plane soon. We got the extra wires made for him. I hope they're going to work. Anyway, there's a lot of things that all have to happen at the same time. It's these curves that all seem to blend together. And when they do, it really looks spectacular. And when they don't, when the light runs down here, as the plane comes through the circle, you'll see the light will go right up the leg. And when that radius is done, really nice. And again, as the final thing, I always have the big radius, just constantly rotating it, get that radius right in there. But the final thing of just rubbing your hand and feeling where there are low or high spots. Now when you have the shape that you're happy with, in this case we're kind of satisfied with this, just a thick CA, rub it on with a paper towel, and don't let the paper towel stick. Let it cure without kicker and resand it. Now you have hard material and a softer material and a perfect blend. I think these are really going to, I think Les did some job. Even this front part here, that's going to look kind of cool. Now it's this transition right in here where we go hard, soft, hard, soft. So, and the strut itself I want to add a little strength to. Now just take that thick CA, paper towel, and I can do this over and over and over and over and just put a coating, and don't let the towel stay in place. Phew, that smells nice. Just keep the towel moving. You can see it leaves a little bit of a shine, and you can sand that now. Once that dries, phew! You can sand that now. When this is dry, I'll sand it out, give it another coat, and just keep going until I get that real nice, smooth glass-like transition. Boy, that stuff really burns. Ooh. Now, the other trick, throw this towel away. Because what I've tried to do is fold it over and winds up, this is already half kicked off and the thing sticks in place. Just throw the towel away when you're done. Now this is a system that I like to use any place where there's going to be a joint. In fact, I'm running out of CA here. You don't really need that much. That any place you're transitioning from a hard material to soft. That works very well, I think. Never use kicker, just spread it out. When that's dry, anyway, I'm going to put this away now because we're having company this afternoon. The Borellis are on their way from Long Island, going to join us. And we always enjoy a nice social day with them. Now we're getting ready for our company. I see Karen's got the grill all nice and polished up. We originally were going to have this beautiful cookout out here, but boy, we have a storm coming in right now. It's unbelievable. Wind is really blowing. I'm not sure we're going to have any flying this weekend. It's supposed to be a club contest this weekend. Boy, we've had some unpredictable weather. We're wearing out the wind chimes out there. There's Robbie Rabanzo, who had 3 little baby birds for us. I don't know if they're going to have another. We still haven't figured out if birds use the nest over and over. We left the nest back up in the hedges, but she's never left the backyard. She kind of likes hanging out here. And we've nicknamed her Robbie Rabanzo. Now take a real close look at this. This is from Walt Brownell. Walt, of course, one of the pioneers in electrics. One of our very original and first video subscribers. So anyway, this is pretty interesting. He sent some pictures of his twin electric. Says he will have it at the Nats. And he said it flies great. Now I remember when not too long ago he was talking about building a twin, but it was a scale twin electric. This certainly looks like, I think this looks pretty cool, even with that nose, that bomber nose on it. I see, the thing I'm interested in with electric is if this twin works out as good as I think it would, a lot of the issues that you have to deal with a twin, like getting the motors to shut off at the same time and getting them to run the same speed, with an electric it solves those problems. And the double disc area of the electrics, it may be that this is the direction the event's going to ultimately go in as better and better electric stuff becomes available. But Walt Brownell for sure is one of the pioneers, and I'm just glad he sent the pictures. I think this is pretty cool. Anyway, and we are looking forward to Having a nice visit with the Borellis today. Karen's already relaxed out. I'm going to try to finish up the emails here, and we just have ourselves a nice, relaxing afternoon. Now this, is this hard to believe? Now this is baby Lena. How old is Jimmy? How old is baby Lena now?
She's now 10 and a half.
Oh, 10 and a half?
Well,
that's right,
January.
July.
That's right, July 4th. She's
July 4th? Oh.
Yeah,
It's the half.
January.
Yeah.
No more baby.
Baby, forget it.
Because
that's how he thinks of her.
That's what I say.
I figured if she's not a baby,
Oh, baby.
I can't be 40 years old that anymore.
No, he's going to turn it off.
We're going to take pictures of you.
Turn it off.
Turn it off, turn it in.
I know. Every time I look in
I get a lot of support from my family, you know. Hey, make your family buy you a video
He's
camera.
got this little one, you know.
Whoa. Hey, when is the food going to be ready here, Grillmeister?
What's that name? I'm cooking, but you know, for the stuffed cabbage, the mix. Yeah.
Look at this. What a man has to put up with.
I made little meatloaves once.
What do you think, Jim? You want to go fishing?
You stuffed cabbage, or you just had it in the fridge?
They're amazingly large.
Great.
Oh, yeah. Take your shoes off and walk in there. You'll see how friendly they are.
I hope the kids like them.
You put this in a magazine.
It's been in a magazine already.
Has it?
Yeah, go to Fairfield Gardens. It's about halfway through the magazine.
Yeah?
Don't you always?
We don't have enough sun.
Rich Oliver, eat your heart out. Let me take a peek at this. Rich Oliver thinks he's the only one in the world knows how to make a steak. Look at that steak. Mmm. The only trouble is we're not going to be able to eat out here tonight because of the storm coming through.
Did he tell you about his bird's garden?
That took about we thought the wind was going to come down from yesterday. It's worse today. How bad is it, Mike? Bad. It's bad. We thought we were going to get some flights here or whatever. Not happening today. This whole summer's been like this, though. It's been the summer of lost days. The only thing makes it worthwhile is knowing it can never get worse. I don't know, maybe it can.
She comes out first. Don't be surprised if you see a buck after her.
This is pretty cool. Here we are, waiting to see if anybody's going to show up today to fly. Look at this. Who needs Kajeski when you have deer eating the grass? Look at this. She's walking right out there. Now you can see where we are here. Boy, you never know. Do you know Jacobone and Datavio caught a snapping turtle up by the other field, Mike?
Really?
A big one too, and they were teasing him and everything. I'm surprised one of them didn't lose a finger. We used to have a turtle. Yeah, when you were working by my house, we had a turtle used to come out here and sit in the middle of the field all day. Look at this. Uh-oh, she knows about us. We're in trouble now. I'll tell you, even when nobody's flying up here, this is a cool place to be, just to hang out with the reindeer. Maybe she's waiting for Santa Claus. What an adventure. Okay, this is the baby. Now the baby comes out. Where's the mama? Mama's over here somewhere. Mama went in the woods and the baby came out. We're getting invaded. The invasion of the body snatchers here. That's a baby, huh, Mike? Yeah, honey, you go start the car. Those guys are flying model planes over there. Forget it. Now all we need... Yeah, where's the buck? Now we've got the wheel pants relatively nicely finished up to this point. Haven't fit the wheels up, but we know we have the axle location pretty close to where we want it. Now, what I did for the finish here, took thick CA, rubbed it on with a paper towel a couple of times, sanded it down, and then simply just put a coat of filler on it. And from that point on, coats of red and coats of clear, and every time I sanded through, I'd put some more red on, then some more clear. Since it's a small part, it's not real critical. Now I need to fit up the wheels today, and we need to make another special fuel tank for Rich Jacobone. What Rich had done is, and I know he didn't mean to do it, he was shimming his tank, and you're supposed to only have the plywood on the edge here, and he got it stuck in here and it crushed the tank, so we're going to make him up a spare tank. We fixed the original one, which of course you can do, but he wants to have a spare ready to go, so in the future when we have any kind of issues, it just doesn't make sense not to have a spare tank. Now this is the funniest thing of all, and you can't really make this up. You know, our lovely friends on Stuka Stunt decided to boycott John's contest. So what happens is, all these people wind up calling me up for the scores and what happened, and who did they, you know, who did that, and here's Joe flying his plane here as I make more copies. But what happened is, and it's the world of unintended consequences, is I wind up having to make a whole bunch extra tapes here, and they're punishing me by making me rich. So if you're one of the people that called for to see it in real life instead of looking out on Stuka Stunt, thank you. And when we originally started the Testarossa project, it was pretty simple what we were doing. We wanted to be able to use one of Richard Oliver's bottle tanks. We also had the special metal tank Joe Adamusco made up, special. But of course, the way we trimmed the plane, it ultimately trimmed out with a 10-inch nose that we wanted to get all of the weight that we possibly could out. So what we wound up doing is using about a 7.5 ounce carbon tank. Now that's only the beginning. So the first part of any development, any decision, is you got to decide which tank you're going to use in the plane. And in this case, we had all the options, and we decided we were going to use this tank. Now I want to show the tube arrangement that we've wound up using. This is something that can work on any engine, but it works real well on a Rojet 75, a 76, 77, 78, Hike. Now we make all the carbon tanks pretty much the same. We've come up with a formula that seems to work real well for us, and it's certainly a predictable, easy to do thing. This would be the front of the tank, that would be the side, and it's not a whole lot different than metal tanks. I've always put the tube to the pickup right in the corner, the uniflow higher than when the plane is sitting on its feet, and this is why on Rich Jacobone's tank I have to make a reverse tank, because I want that on the other side. And I try to get, whether I have an overflow pointing up, but I want to get it right in this corner, whether it's pointing up or forward. So looking at this, what would be this tube, the overflow would come out the top. The main tube that goes into the tank, and I've experimented with this forever, I leave it 1/8 of an inch from the back of the tank, because if I get it up in the back, if I get it to where it almost touches, or if I put a 45-degree bevel, what happens is it winds up sucking air, and I get 4 or 5 laps of burping and doing all kind of crazy stuff. Now the uniflow pipe that comes in goes right into the tank, and it can end anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch to the back to mid-tank. Now it turned out the bombers liked a midpoint. The bigger, more overpowered planes seem to prefer this. And I always put a little JB weld and a little wire on it either place, but if I put the uniflow pipe all the way to the back, say within 1/4 of an inch of the back or mid-tank, there's advantages and disadvantages either way. But we've stumbled upon something that really works. Now this is old technology. This is really old technology. Now what I do is, I stumbled on this almost by accident, but it really did work well on a 77. There's my uniflow pipe. Now what I do is, outside the plane, I have this connected to the nose of the plane, and the way this evolved, it was pretty funny. And the overflow then, of course, just goes down. This is the overflow. So what really happened here, and it was just by accident, is both Dave Midgley and I had this vent sticking out the front. And I think a combination of the way the air was flowing around the plane and the fact that the 14-inch prop really throws some air. I mean, you're really in a storm of air up there. It was just ever so little bleeding when the tank was full, a couple of drops of raw fuel back on a plane, and every time you'd have to wipe the nose off. And I didn't like that at all. So what I tried was, and it's old-fashioned technology, this is not something new, I capped off the uniflow. So now the tank is just a box. There's no uniflow. In the bottom vent, I made a little piece. I'm going to make another one now, just to have a spare if anybody wants to try this. Attach this with a little piece of rubber or solder it on. So now I fill a tank the normal way. It's still got a uniflow. I can still flip it right back in a matter of seconds. But now I'm running this as the open vent. The overflow vent is the open vent. Now, what typically happens, Big Jim used to call this a box tank when you didn't have a uniflow vent. The downside of a box tank is the motor will start off at one speed and very gradually pick up speed as the fuel head diminishes, and toward the end of the flight it'll be going a predictable amount faster. Now, on some situations, if a plane is underpowered, a 35 Nobler with that's 50 ounces, this may not be what you want. But for this ship, because the 77 holds a setting so well and so predictable on a needle, what happens, I can get this that I have this really smooth, slow wing over. Somewhere around the outside rounds, I can feel it pick up a little bit. And we're talking about 1/10 of a second. I'd have to look at the video. But right around where the hourglass is, or the vertical 8, right around the vertical 8, this starts to really pick up, and then it gives me what I really always have wanted, is that really solid overhead 8 and the 4-leaf clover. So it's like the last 4 maneuvers in the pattern are going 1/10 faster than the wing over. Now in uniflow that doesn't happen. You keep the same speed, which means you have a fast wing over and a slow overhead 8. So all this old technology seems to have worked for a lot of reasons. Number one, because the needle is very, very predictable on a 77. It isn't a wild, radical, overcompressed engine. It's very predictable. It's big, smooth power, and of course one of the nice things is the 90 should be even better. When we get the 90, fit in something, a Strega ARF or something. And that is happening very soon. That might happen within the next couple of weeks. But this technology, this box tank, you can do this to any plane at the field. All you need to do is make a little piece of tubing with a bend in it. We're going to do that right now. And then connect it to the bottom, assuming that's your overflow. Put a little piece of neoprene or whatever. Make sure it's facing forward. What happens if you leave the little elbow off? Nothing seems to happen, but you get a few drops of fuel on the bottom of the plane. And I mean, maybe like a salt shaker of fuel. Not a big deal, but I don't want any fuel on my plane. This totally eliminates it. The only place I have to wipe the plane off now is from the end of the rubber on the Testarossa back. And that paint is starting to deteriorate already after how many flights we have. Next year we're going to allow a little more clearance around the pipe. We have a real tight fit. It looks real cool, but I need to leave maybe another 1/8 of an inch of clearance on next year's plane if we build a plane with that similar exhaust. And we like that exhaust because it leaves a very broad, straight smoke trail instead of what looks like a garden hose coming out of the bottom of the plane. Now, one of the things we learned from the Testarossa, let's just make up a little sketch here. Where the pipe comes through the body, and we have this hollow spot back here, which kind of simulates a real Testarossa, well, it's this area we've got to leave a little more clearance. The alternative to that is that you put a normal stinger or stingers, and then this, what I don't like is this, is it looks like a garden hose or something behind the plane. This gave me a nice smooth smoke trail, and the guys that judged at Brodak both mentioned to me that that smoke trail is perfectly straight. Well, as opposed to this, which can go anywhere. And it means at the end of a day of flying, I take a half a paper towel and go boink and I'm done. But this is a significant thing to learn. I wasn't sure that that paint was going to hold up. Brodak dope is not a high temperature paint, but we'll certainly figure something that we can do back there. Maybe coat it with high temperature resin or something. I don't